Growing up, I always thought my sister and I were inseparable. She was only 2 years younger than me, and for most of our childhood, we were partners in crime. We'd build blanket forts in the living room, sneak cookies from the kitchen when Mom wasn't looking, and whisper secrets late into the night. She was the first person I confided in when I had a crush in middle school, and I was the one who threatened to beat up her bullies when she came home crying. On the surface, it looked like the kind of sibling bond people envy, but underneath, there was always a quiet undercurrent of competition. My sister hated losing, whether it was a board game, a race to the car, or who got more attention from our parents. I used to laugh it off, thinking it was just part of her fiery personality. But as we got older, the little digs and subtle jabs became more pointed. She'd make fun of my clothes, roll her eyes when I talked about my goals, and find a way to remind me that I wasn't as special as I thought I was. Still, I didn't take it too seriously. She was my sister after all. I thought the love between us was unshakable. Everything began to change the day I met Claire. It was during my last year of college at a friend's birthday party. The room was loud with music and laughter, but somehow, when I saw her standing there with her bright smile and calm, confident presence, the noise faded. We started talking, and I felt an instant connection, like I had known her for years even though we had just met. What struck me most wasn't just her beauty, but her sincerity. She listened when I spoke, laughed at my terrible jokes, and carried herself with a kindness that felt rare. Claire wasn't like anyone I had ever dated before. With her, there was no need to pretend, no games to play, no insecurities to tiptoe around. She saw me for who I was and loved me anyway. Over time, we built a relationship that was steady and full of trust. We planned road trips, supported each other through hard days, and talked late into the night about our dreams for the future. Every step of the way, I knew she was the one I wanted by my side for life. When I finally proposed, it felt like everything in my world clicked into place. She said yes through tears of joy, and we immediately started planning a wedding that would bring together the people we loved most. I imagined my sister standing proudly beside me, celebrating this new chapter of my life. Despite our differences, I thought she'd be happy for me. After all, wasn't this what family was for? To support each other during life's biggest milestones? Back then, I had no idea how wrong I was. What I saw as the happiest time of my life would soon become the stage for betrayal I never expected. From the very sister I once trusted with everything. At first, I told myself I was imagining it. My sister's smiles at Claire seemed genuine enough, but there was always a sharp edge in her words. She would compliment Claire's dress, then follow it with, "That color really makes your skin look pale." She'd gush about our engagement photos, only to add, "But don't you think your smile looks a little forced in that one?" It was never outright cruelty, just small barbs hidden beneath sugar-coated words. Claire brushed it off with grace. She'd smile politely, thank my sister, and change the subject. But I couldn't ignore the way her shoulders tightened every time my sister spoke, or the way her eyes flickered toward me, silently asking if I heard it too. I did, and it gnawed at me. Then came the rumors. Somehow, relatives began whispering about how Claire was too controlling or not really interested in family. At first, I dismissed it. Family gossip always runs wild during wedding planning. But when a cousin pulled me aside and said, "Your sister told me Claire didn't even want kids. Are you okay with that?" I knew it wasn't just idle chatter. My sister was planting seeds of doubt. The tension only grew as the wedding date approached. One night after dinner at my parents' house, my sister leaned across the table and said with a smirk, "Don't you think you're rushing things? I mean, you've only known Claire for what, 3 years? Some people wait longer, you know." I snapped back. 3 years is plenty when you know you've found the right person. My mom quickly hushed us, saying, "Come on, don't fight. It's a wedding. We should be celebrating." My dad added with a chuckle, "That's just your sister being protective. She only wants the best for you." Protective. That was the word everyone used to excuse her behavior. They couldn't or wouldn't see the malice simmering just beneath her smile. To them, she was the loving younger sister looking out for her big brother. But to me, she was becoming something else entirely. a shadow lurking over what should have been the happiest time of my life. Claire, meanwhile, stayed quiet. She never lashed out, never gave my sister the reaction she seemed to crave. Instead, she observed, I could see it in her eyes, the way she took in every sly remark, every whispered rumor, every attempt to stir trouble. She was playing the long game, and though I didn't realize it at the time, she was preparing for something I couldn't yet imagine. I wish I could say I confronted my sister right then and there, but the truth is, I was torn. I didn't want to create a family war before my wedding. Part of me still clung to the hope that maybe I was overreacting, that maybe my sister just had trouble adjusting to the idea of sharing me with someone else. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't about sibling attachment. This was about jealousy. Raw, bitter jealousy that was only growing sharper with every passing day. And soon, it would explode in ways I never could have predicted. The week of the wedding should have been magical. Final fittings, last-minute checklists, the buzz of excitement from family arriving from out of town. It should have been a blur of happiness. Instead, it turned into a battlefield. And at the center of it all was my sister. It began with the dresses. Claire had chosen simple, elegant bridesmaid gowns in soft lavender, something flattering for everyone. But when my sister went for her fitting, she suddenly claimed the dressmaker had botched her size. "This is 2 sizes too small," she whined loudly in the shop, drawing stares. The tailor apologized, insisting it matched her exact measurements, but my sister refused to let it go. "You just want me to look ridiculous next to the bride," she spat, glaring at Claire. The tailor offered to adjust the dress, but my sister stormed out dramatically, leaving Claire embarrassed and on the verge of tears. Then came the seating chart. We had spent hours arranging it so that feuding relatives wouldn't sit together, but somehow the chart kept accidentally getting changed. Twice I caught my sister moving name cards around, claiming she was helping. One night she even texted me, "Do you really think it's smart to sit Aunt Marjorie next to Claire's family? They don't even know each other. Feels awkward." At first, I chalked it up to her being nosy, but when guests started calling me directly to ask why their tables had been changed, I realized she was deliberately stirring up confusion. The worst came 2 days before the wedding. My phone buzzed at midnight with a frantic call from my sister. "You need to come right now. Mom's had a fall." My heart nearly stopped. I raced to my parents' house, only to find Mom perfectly fine, sitting in the living room with a cup of tea. She looked at me bewildered when I rushed in. My sister, standing smugly by the window, shrugged and said, "Oh, I must have overreacted. She just tripped a little." That was the moment I finally understood she wasn't just being difficult. She was deliberately creating chaos, testing how far she could go before anyone called her out. And the worst part? No one else seemed to notice. To my family, it was just wedding stress. To me, it felt like my sister was tightening a noose around the celebration. I was exhausted. The wedding was supposed to be about joy, about love, about beginning a new life with Claire. Instead, I found myself dreading every phone call, every interaction, afraid of what my sister might pull next. But Claire, she was different. She didn't crumble under the pressure. While I vented my frustrations late at night, she listened calmly, her expression thoughtful. She never raised her voice, never let anger get the better of her. Instead, she simply said, "Don't worry. People like her always reveal themselves in the end. Just trust me." At the time, I didn't know what she meant. I only knew that as my sister grew bolder, convinced she could ruin our big day without consequence, Claire's quiet confidence gave me hope. Somewhere deep down, she was preparing for something, and when the moment came, I would understand why she never fought back. The morning of the wedding was picture perfect. The sun streamed through the stained glass windows of the church, casting golden light across the polished wooden pews. Guests laughed and chatted as they found their seats, the hum of excitement filling the air. I stood at the front, nerves buzzing, my heart pounding with anticipation. After months of stress, arguments, and sleepless nights, this was it, the moment I would finally marry Claire. As the music swelled and the doors opened, my breath caught. Claire appeared, radiant in her gown, her veil floating behind her like something out of a dream. Every step she took down the aisle felt like the world slowing to a stop. For a moment, all the chaos faded, and it was just her and me, two souls about to become one. But of course, peace never lasts long with my sister around. Just as the officiant began his opening words, a voice cut through the air. My sister. She stood up in her lavender dress, her face twisted in mock concern. "Wait!" she cried, her tone loud enough to silence the entire room. "Before this marriage goes any further, I think everyone deserves to know the truth about your precious bride." Gasps rippled through the guests. My stomach dropped, and I froze where I stood. My sister's eyes gleamed as she clutched her phone in her hand. "Claire isn't who you all think she is," she declared. "She's been lying to my brother, hiding things from him, and I have proof." The room erupted in murmurs. Relatives leaned toward one another, whispering. I felt a hot flush of panic creep up my neck. My mind spun, desperate to understand what she was doing, what she could possibly have. Claire, however, didn't flinch. She didn't tremble, didn't gasp, didn't even glance my way for reassurance. Instead, she took a slow, deliberate breath and turned to face my sister. The calm on her face was almost unnerving. My sister smirked, thinking she had won. She waved her phone like a weapon. "Do you want me to play the messages, Claire? Do you want me to show everyone the kind of person you really are?" I couldn't move. My heart pounded in my chest, every instinct telling me to shield Claire, to protect her, but I was paralyzed, torn between rage and fear. What if she had something real? What if my sister was about to shatter everything? The guests sat in stunned silence, all eyes on my bride. My sister basked in the attention, convinced she was about to ruin not just the wedding, but Claire's reputation, our love, and our future. But Claire only lifted her chin, her voice steady and clear as she spoke. "Actually," she said, her eyes locked on my sister, "I was wondering when you'd finally try this. Because I've been ready for you." A hush fell over the room. My sister's smug smile faltered for the first time. And in that charged silence, I realized something. Claire had seen this moment coming all along. For a split second, no one breathed. My sister clutched her phone like a weapon, ready to deliver the killing blow. But then Claire spoke again, her voice calm and steady, each word slicing through the silence like glass. "You've been planning this for months, haven't you?" she said softly, almost pityingly. "Dropping little lies into people's ears, stirring drama, trying to sabotage every part of this wedding. You really thought I wouldn't notice?" Gasps echoed through the crowd. My sister blinked, thrown off by the composure in Claire's tone. I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. Claire tilted her head and smiled, but it wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind that carried steel beneath it. She reached into the folds of her gown and pulled out her own phone. "Funny thing is," she continued, "when you spend so much time scheming, you leave a trail. And I've been collecting it." She tapped the screen, and suddenly the sound of my sister's voice filled the church. Recorded messages played loud and clear for everyone to hear. "Don't worry. I'll make sure she looks awful in that dress. If I can cause enough drama before the wedding, maybe he'll rethink marrying her. Claire doesn't deserve him. I'll prove it to everyone." The guests erupted in shocked whispers. My father's face went pale, my mother covered her mouth, and the officiant froze mid-step. My sister's eyes went wide, and she lunged toward Claire. "Turn that off!" she hissed, but Claire wasn't finished. She raised her voice above the chaos. "That's not all. She's been telling people I don't want children, that I'm using you for money, that I'm controlling. So I started keeping screenshots, too." She turned her phone to the guests in the front row, showing a string of text messages, each one dripping with venom from my sister, lies, manipulation, smears against Claire's character. Proof undeniable. The room shifted. Guests who had looked uneasy before now glared at my sister with open disgust. My aunt muttered, "How could you?" Someone else shook their head in disbelief, and then came the final blow. Claire raised her eyes, steady and clear. "You wanted to ruin me in front of everyone? Congratulations, you've just revealed yourself instead. This is who you are, and everyone can see it now." The silence that followed was deafening. My sister stood frozen, her face flushed, her hands trembling. Then, as if realizing the game was over, she let out a choked scream and stormed out of the church. Slamming the doors behind her, I stood there, overwhelmed, not just by the betrayal I'd witnessed, but by the strength of the woman beside me. While I had doubted, while I had tried to keep the peace, Claire had quietly been protecting us both, building a shield of truth that shattered my sister's schemes in one decisive moment. I looked at her then, truly seeing her, not just as the woman I loved, but as my partner, my defender, my equal. She hadn't just saved our wedding. She had shown me the depth of her loyalty, her courage, and her love. And in that moment, I knew nothing and no one could ever come between us again. The heavy church doors slammed shut behind my sister, the sound echoing like a final verdict. For a long, stunned moment, no one moved. Then slowly, the tension began to unravel. Guests shifted in their seats. Whispers turned into murmurs of sympathy and outrage. And all eyes turned not to the empty doorway she had left behind, but to Claire. She stood tall, serene, her hand still resting lightly on mine. And in that silence, she didn't look like a bride under attack. She looked like a queen who had just defended her kingdom. My mother, tears streaming down her face, rose from her seat and crossed the aisle to embrace Claire. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," she whispered. "I didn't see it." I didn't want to see it. But thank you for protecting him and us from her lies. One by one, family members who had once excused my sister's behavior now came forward to offer apologies, reassurances, and even gratitude. My father's voice cracked as he admitted, "We thought she was being protective. We didn't realize she was poisoning everything. I should have stopped her." But Claire only shook her head gently. "What's done is done. Today is about love, not bitterness." The officiant, after a pause to let the storm settle, cleared his throat and asked softly, "Shall we continue?" And just like that, the ceremony picked up again, not tainted, but transformed. If anything, the vows felt more powerful now, heavy with meaning. As I looked into Claire's eyes and promised her forever, it wasn't just words. It was a vow forged in fire, tested by betrayal, and made unshakable by truth. The guests who moments earlier had gasped in horror now cheered with unrestrained joy. The church rang with applause, laughter, and tears as we sealed our vows with a kiss. The reception that followed was unlike anything I could have imagined. What should have been tense was instead euphoric, almost cathartic. Guests danced harder, laughed louder, and celebrated with a fierce joy, as if determined to drown out the shadow my sister had tried to cast. Strangers toasted to our resilience. Family members embraced Claire as if welcoming her not just as my bride, but as the woman who had exposed the darkness in our midst with courage and grace. And me? I couldn't stop watching her. The way she carried herself, the way she smiled as if nothing could shake her, it was humbling. I had spent months torn between protecting peace and confronting my sister, but Claire had quietly gathered her strength, preparing not to fight with anger but with truth. Later that night, as we finally stole a moment alone, I held her close and whispered, "You saved everything." She smiled, resting her head against my chest. "No," she said softly, "we saved it together. Because love always wins. Lies can only live in shadows. And today, the truth came into the light. She was right. My sister's betrayal cut deep, but it also revealed something greater, the unshakable bond I shared with my wife. And as I looked out at the glowing faces of friends and family who had chosen love over deception, I realized something else too. In the end, family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by loyalty, by honesty, and by the people who choose to stand with you when the world tries to tear you apart. And with Claire by my side, I knew I had all the family I would ever need.